everyone. My name's Sam, and I run some media companies. I suppose here in a TV video expo, we are talking about video and television. So my most usable title will be CEO of Barcroft Productions, which is a production company that makes factual TV. Okay, tech fail. So basically we make television for Discovery, Channel 5, Animal Planet, TLC, and various other channels. And we also have a YouTube channel called Barcroft TV originally, which is now the world's third biggest channel for news on YouTube. Barcroft Productions, we're back, is essentially a company that we founded 3 years ago. And we're very much in the popular factual space. So we work around subjects like crime, medical, and news and fast turnaround documentaries. Barcroft TV is our YouTube brand, and we create content and share it on platforms like MSN, Yahoo, Dailymotion, and Youku in China. And we get a lot of traction around the same types of content that we produce for linear television and for online. So essentially what I wanted to do today was have a work through what we've done to get our brands to a point where they work in China as well as they do in the UK. In fact, China's now a bigger market for us in terms of usage than America. I think we've had more views on Youku in the last month than we have on YouTube in the rest of the world. And our business is now far more than 50% turnover from markets outside of the UK. So that's quite a nice place to be after many years of building a company. So I'm going to take you back to the beginning and talk about how we got there. So basically, I started life as a teenager who wanted to be a rock star. Well, actually, hip-hop was my thing. So age 14, my first job was in a live hip-hop band. I still got aspirations of headlining at big festivals, but I think things have gone slightly left field from there. But what I did was that taught me some real basics about running a business. So actually running a band is a bit like running anything else. You've got to stay together as a team, you've got to decide what you want to achieve, and you've got to get people to come along and enjoy what you do. So that was my first real job. But when I was 18, I kind of realized that I had to make a decision between having a real job or playing in my band, and I kind of went with the real job idea. So I went off to university. That didn't work for me, so I got a summer job and decided to kind of stay on. So I was very lucky to get a job at a company called Rex, which happened to be one of the UK's best archives of amazing stills. So I spent a summer deep in a vault going through amazing prints of the Beatles and amazing news imagery from all over the world. And it gave me a fascination with storytelling and with archive and with just enjoying great content. Oh dear, won't do that again. So essentially, aged 18, 19, I was stuck in a basement full of amazing content, and it kind of opened my eyes to the world of news and storytelling. I was on £3.50 an hour, charged with putting these prints in the right places so that researchers could come and find them. But it really taught me some great lessons about values and having really key values yourself and what you want to achieve as an individual, what excites you, and what you're going to get out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning to do and carry on working until you have to stop. It's a real big part of what I've done, is always being really keen on what I do and loving it so that I'm willing to do it, whatever it takes. And so what I learned at this great family company called Rex Features was a great set of values, really good ways to do business, and I got a real passion for great content. So my career kind of moved into photography from there, and I was lucky enough to get a job at a Sunday newspaper as a photo editor. And tabloid newspapers in the 90s were a really interesting place to be for lots of reasons. And that taught me a lot about how not to do things, and value sets that I didn't necessarily agree with. And I kind of used that experience to understand big business, because they were very successful companies in the 90s that had great resource and were very powerful. And so what that taught me was there are very big differences between small companies and big companies, and they all are trying to do the same thing, but they all do it in very different ways. And then my career took me abroad to work in Australia, and that was really where I started to understand international business and how to do business internationally, because I started working for a small press agency in Sydney, and although I'd worked for Rex Features, which was a leading company in that space, I hadn't really understood that companies abroad do things in slightly different ways than we do here. Markets work differently, and things happen in ways that you wouldn't expect. And so I really had a second education by working in the same market somewhere else. I had to learn to do things differently, to talk to people in different ways, use different terminology. But when I left after a 6-month work placement, I realized that there was great opportunities abroad. Now, if you're a director or a cameraman or a producer, or you make equipment, really whatever you do, there'll be people doing exactly the same job as you in other parts of the world. And here in the UK, we've got a hugely saturated and competitive marketplace. In pretty much anything that any of us do, you probably can all think of lots of competitors that do similar things to you, maybe more cheaply or more aggressively. But what I learned was, if you come outside of a mature economy and a really challenging marketplace, you can turn into places that are slightly more interested in your knowledge and that have got more opportunity for you. So Australia was a much smaller marketplace, but had very few competitors, so I was able to succeed there and do really well. So I came back to the UK in 99, just before the Olympics in Australia, and I went to work for the Daily Mail, which again taught me lots of things about big business and big brands. And they were at the top of their zenith, really. Then they were adding sales left, right and centre. Whether you agree or not with their politics, they were a really exciting brand that knew exactly where they were going and who their audience were, and were highly successful. I was lucky enough to have big budgets there to be able to do whatever we wanted with, and we did some very interesting things. And really, that's when I decided that I wanted to do something on my own. I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to really chase after the stories that I wanted to go after, and go after the content that I thought would be interesting to others. And at that moment, there was a big opportunity in the market, because newspapers were in big decline, bar the Daily Mail, which meant they couldn't afford to have lots of staffers. And so a new economy was growing up. There was a moment. And these moments come along in all industries when things start to change, and that can be very destructive when you work for a big company and you get made redundant. But it can also be really opportune, because if you find yourself in a moment where all of a sudden big companies need external resource, there can be really big opportunities. So I decided to take the plunge and go freelance and become a freelance photojournalist. So that was really exciting, because I travelled the world shooting amazing stories that I was really interested in, and it worked. I created a really good life for myself and my family, and we basically, I lived the life of a journalist on the road. I didn't see my family much, but I was running around all over the world enjoying myself. What I was learning every time I went away was how other people did their business and what opportunities lay around the world. And as I was creating this content for British websites and newspapers and magazines, I started to get phone calls from other magazines and newspapers and websites that had seen our content and got interested in it. And that kind of opened the door to a very small start in selling abroad. Now, people here do lots of different things, but if you're a content producer, we're in a brilliant situation, because if you make dishwashers and you want to do business in France, generally you've got to ship a load of dishwashers to France, spend a whole heap of money, and then start selling them. Now, if you make TV shows, you can send a file now, click of a button, and you're away. And you can do that to 200 countries all around the world. So we've got a great advantage in terms of being able to distribute very cheaply and be able to help people out really easily. So anyway, there I was, starting to do small sales to big brands, Parry Match, New York Post, Bild, which was really interesting. But I started to hit some hurdles, which I think a lot of foreign businesses do hit. If somebody wants to pay you 200 euros and you put it in your bank, often you're going to get hit with charges. You know, you'll get charged 50 euro just to bank the check. Secondly, you know, you'll find that it's very difficult to chase certain people for payment in different countries, because if you do a good deal in Italy, all of a sudden you might find 6 months later that the €1,000 or the €3,000 that you were promised hasn't turned up, and it's quite difficult to get hold of it. So there were challenges early on, but I think what it did was give me an opportunity to see how we could expand our business and do well. So in 2003, I set up a company called Barcroft Media. I was busy, too busy. I needed some people to help me out. So I hired some extra people. We took a little unit in the local techno park. It's an odd word, but, you know, there we are. And off we went. And then we worked very hard to build a small business, which we were quite proud of. There were 3 or 4 of us at that stage, and we had a breakthrough moment. And whenever you have a career or a business, there are these moments that I call breakthrough moments, is when everything changes. So at that stage, we were still working mostly for magazines and newspapers, and we got a tip from one of our people in Africa that Madonna had arrived in Malawi. So Madonna at that time was top of the world. Everybody wanted a piece of Madonna. So our local stringer in Malawi said to us, well, we think the reason Madonna is in Malawi is because she wants to adopt an African child. So we checked this out with the local NGO, who said, yeah, Madonna's in town because she wants to adopt an African child. So there we were, 3 or 4 of us, thinking, should we spend lots of money to send a crew to Malawi to report this news story? And with my knowledge of what people wanted and the marketplace, we thought, that's just a brilliant story. Let's take a chance. Let's take a risk. Let's back ourselves and our knowledge and our network and go and try something exciting. So that's what we did. We bought plane tickets and we sent a crew over to Malawi, and we found the child and we found his birth parents and we reported the story. And that became a massive sensation all over the world, and we got phone calls from everyone. It was brilliant. It was a breakthrough moment. It was that day that you're desperate for when you're running a small business and everything seems really difficult. And that opened some really great doors into people we'd been banging on the doors for years. You know, people like the New York Post, who we do lots of business with now, wouldn't pick up the phone to us, wouldn't answer an email, didn't want to know in the slightest. But as soon as you've got that hot property or that product or that service that's going to make a difference to their business, then you have a breakthrough moment and things change. The funniest story about that was a company called Bulls Press in Sweden, who are one of Europe's biggest content syndication agencies, who I'd telephoned about 2 months before, and I said, we have all this nice content, we'd like you to represent it in the 14 countries you work in. And they took a look at it and they said, thanks very much for the call, but we're not interested. And that was a really bad moment for us. And then 3 weeks later, they were on the phone, desperate for our content. And so I suppose the moral of that story is, if you trust yourself and back yourself, and if you know what you're doing, you'll find that everything does go in the right direction for you once you have a moment. And if you keep trying every day, things come round pretty quickly. So essentially, that was our breakthrough moment. What changed from then, really, was an understanding that everything's possible, and that if you try hard enough and you're clever enough about what you're trying to do, you can achieve pretty much anything. So how do we go from having a breakthrough moment like that to running a production company that makes a lot of television, a YouTube channel that's one of the world's leading channels, and a press agency that has contracts all around the world? It's small steps. It's small steps all the time. So from that moment when we gained a big portfolio of clients, we just decided as a team to keep developing those relationships. And there's a few ways of doing that. The one that we found works the best is just working very hard to look after clients, thinking about what they need and thinking about how you can help them achieve those goals is really vital for those people. And so we do things in a really bespoke way. We still have, me and my senior team still have daily conversations with all our key clients. We do a lot of traveling to go and see them because that makes them feel loved. Pretty much anything that any of us do, other people do it as well. So what sets us apart? And genuinely, it's relationships, and it's whether people like you or not, because they've usually got a choice about who they can work with. And if they've got that choice, why not help them choose you by putting in the effort? So we took a lot of small steps at keeping those relationships going after that breakthrough moment. And what we did was we took the money that we earned from that moment and we reinvested it into more people and more adventures. And so we had another breakthrough moment after that, which was we decided to open an office in India, because India was a place that we kept finding great stories in, but we didn't have any logistical resource. And India at that time was a country that no one really was very interested in and that there was no competition in. So one of our team went over to India and set up a small office in India. It was very cheap for us. It was really easy to get into the market because there was no competition. And so we backed ourselves and did it. And after 6 months, we found an amazing story about a little girl called Lakshmi who was born with a parasitic twin attached to her. And we worked with another company, a partner of ours that we'd been warming up called Zigzag Productions, who I'm sure some people know of. And we co-produced a film for Channel 4, and that was our first foray into television. We'd organised the access, we'd developed the idea, and we worked with an established company to produce the film. That went out on Channel 4 and was successful. And luckily for us, Nat Geo got interested in it, and Nat Geo commissioned a 2-hour version of the same film, which then became the second biggest ever premiere for Nat Geo at that time in history. It got, in America on cable, nearly 6 million views, which for them was huge, which was our next breakthrough moment. And that really opened the doors to what we do now, because it offered an opportunity for us to scale up. And we did, I think, 11 more co-pros with Zigzag over the next 12 months for Channel 4, Sky, Discovery, and TLC. And that helped us start our business. But what we learned from that was that when you've got a success, you have to build on it. So we decided to go to lots of trade shows and go and try and meet all these potential clients and tell our story and try and engage with everybody, which was really helpful because there's nothing better than meeting people in the flesh if you want to get work from them. And in an age of email and IM and lots of different ways to connect with people, smiling at someone, looking them in the eye and talking about things that you're really passionate about is definitely the way to win hearts and minds. And if you win hearts and minds, you can win business. And so that's what we decided to do. And we got a lot of help from an organisation called PACT, Producers Alliance for Cinema and TV. And if any of you are producers, I would say, hand on heart, they're the one organisation that have been absolutely transformational in terms of supporting us alongside UKTI. And they're actually funded by UKTI. They are brilliant at networking. They're brilliant at bringing business opportunities to you. And I've watched people at MIP who are brand new into the market, standing in a room next to somebody who runs a global super indie. And they're very inclusive and they help people a lot to make things happen. And some of the best things that have happened to us in TV have happened as a result of opportunities that have been offered up by PACT. So I would say, please check them out. They're really good people who'll try really hard for you, and it's been really opportune working with them. Anyway, so why go around the world and go to lots of trade fairs and meet lots of people? Well, number one, if you get support from UKTI, and bodies like Pact, it's not very expensive. When you think about the amount of money you might be making or your business might be making, the price of one airfare to go to somewhere like Real Screen in the States is relatively low, but what you get from it is a room with 300 clients that aren't going anywhere for 3 days, that have to, as part of their job, meet you and talk to you and listen to what you want to achieve alongside them. Number two, it's fantastic fun. You know, it's not a real job. Traveling the world, meeting people in swanky places, getting drunk, hanging out and learning all about their lives is fantastic and really enjoyable. And anybody that's ever been to MIP and wandered up and down the Croisette at 3 o'clock in the morning will know that it's really good fun, and it's a great part of our business. You can enjoy doing these things and networking and meeting people, and if you enjoy it, your passion then gets transferred into what people do. So we went to lots of trade fairs, and it takes time, but those relationships slowly build and you gain the confidence of people that you work with, and then all of a sudden you have other breakthrough moments and things work well. And so our main terrestrial breakthrough moment was we decided to set up our own indie in 2010 called Barcroft Productions originally, and essentially what we did was we decided that we'd co-prod for years with Zigzag, Darlow Smithson, others, and we'd really understood how to transition from a news company into a documentary making company. The news business was going well and was growing. We'd built a network of 20 different sub-agencies all around the world who represented our material for us. And we'd opened an office in New York so that we could get really interesting stories from America and sell back into America. And when we started our own indie, we had nothing on the slate, and it was another adventure. And I went and spoke to all the commissioners, and many of them wouldn't speak to me. And when you've been running a successful company for 8 or 9 years and you've built up a base of clients, it's quite a surprise, actually, to go into a similar industry and have everybody ignore you and not return your calls. But it was quite a good experience in a lot of ways, because it taught me that you have to be very humble and you have to try your best with whatever you do, because we're all flesh and bones, and at the end of the day you are only ever going to succeed on enthusiasm, talent and experience, and a combination of all those three. So shortly after we started Barcroft Productions, unfortunately Amy Winehouse passed away, and we were called by Channel 5, who said, do you have any great material on Amy Winehouse? And luckily, in our news division, we'd done some exclusive interviews with her husband, so we had a great product. And we turned around an hour special in 8 days, and it went out and got a lot of viewers. And that was a real adventure, but it also put us on the map in terms of UK terrestrials. And so out of that, we've managed to build a company that's now ticking over well. We've got 20 hours in production at the moment for various different networks. And really the story of that is about harnessing international trade. A lot of those hours are for international broadcasters, and they're not for UK, because a lot of those broadcasters are more interested in working with British producers than a lot of British terrestrial broadcasters. It is easier, I will say, to get commissions from US broadcasters than it is from UK broadcasters, and the budgets are higher. And so I would say talking to US indies and about co-pros and talking to US broadcasters about your ideas is very exciting and can be very lucrative, and I'd suggest everybody that wants to produce for the US goes for it, because they're much more meritocracy. It's much more of a meritocracy in the US. They will go on ideas rather than reputation, and so it's a big opportunity. And lastly, what we decided to do was embrace digital, because that was an area that we really felt was an opportunity for us. And we created a channel called Barcroft TV, another very original name. I've got a couple of videos to play you quickly that show you the kind of things we do on there, because this is our new hot product, as it were.
This extraordinary footage shows a lion being flipped 5 meters into the air. The juvenile predator was about to complete a kill before a giant male buffalo intervened to save his friend from certain death. The hungry duo spent 45 minutes stalking their prey in the Kruger National Park, South Africa. But after bringing down the defenceless buffalo, one lion left itself open to a surprise attack. The astonishing moment was captured by 52-year-old Ian Matheson and his 16-year-old son, Oliver, during an early morning safari. Amazingly, all of the animals walked away from the encounter with no major injuries.
That's a video that we put up in December that we sourced from a person that had actually filmed that on their phone in Africa. That had 61 million views in December. I believe, no, apologies, it had 35 million views. The channel had a lot more. And we've created a channel that's now number 3 in the world for news on YouTube. That's been a real success story for us because it helps promote our brand. We get some real income from it, and it's global. You know, Saudi Arabia, a lot of people watch this channel. A lot of the people that watch the channel in Poland, in Mexico, in lots of different places. So it really helps our brand to reach lots of different people. It helps impact it, and it shows that you don't need a commissioner to reach people all over the world. You don't have to go, anyone can upload to YouTube, and anybody can create their own brand and can create their own story using platforms like YouTube. So it's really liberating, and I think that if you imagine that we're in one economy here in the UK, which is one of the world's richest economies and one of the world's richest environments in the creative industries. In fact, the creative industries is the UK's biggest growing sector. But that, when you look at it in the round, there's 200 other economies out there who are all desperate to understand what we do and how we do it. And so it really gives everybody an opportunity to survive. And it means when you go abroad, everybody wants to be interested in how we do things here. So I suppose how to do it, to summarise, the best thing to do is to reach out to people and to be consistent about what you're doing. Start off with emails and phone calls. People will listen if you've got a compelling story and if you've got something that they need. So do think about who you're talking to, look at what they do, and look at where what you do can fit into what they do, and just keep going. Be consistent and be positive. And it's all small steps. You know, I've managed in 10 years to go from my back bedroom, trying to avoid the fridge and the internet and my kids screaming, all the way through to having offices in 3 different continents and having a lot of work and a great team around me. That's all just been simple steps every day. There's no brain science to it. There's nothing amazing. It's just about being consistent, reaching out and believing in your own aspirations and enthusiasm and working really hard. And so I would say do talk to the people at UKTI. There is a lot of money there to help you reach out to new markets. There are a lot of organisations like PACT that can really help you connect with people and that have really high-level contacts that can help promote you as UK's finest and enjoy it, because actually traveling the world, meeting new people and being enthusiastic about what you do is really infectious and people love it. So there we are. Thank you very much.